The blood was still fresh on Helena Foster's lip when she walked into the dusty saloon in Bisbee, Arizona territory, that scorching July afternoon in 1882. And she was not looking for sympathy, because she had learned years ago that mercy was a luxury women like her could not afford. She kept her head down, her dark hair falling forward to hide the bruise blooming across her cheekbone, purple and angry against her pale skin. The saloon was half empty in the afternoon heat, just a few men nursing whiskey at corner tables, and the bartender wiping down glasses with a rag that had seen better days. Helena made her way to the bar, her hands trembling slightly as she placed a few coins on the scarred wooden surface. "Water, please," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. The bartender, a heavy-set man with kind eyes, glanced at her face and his expression softened. He poured her a glass without comment, sliding it across the bar. Helena drank it slowly, savoring the cool liquid against her split lip. She had walked 3 miles from the small homestead on the outskirts of town, her feet aching in boots that were too tight, her ribs protesting with every breath. Marcus Foster, her husband of 4 years, had a temper like summer lightning, sudden and devastating. This morning it had been about burnt eggs. Yesterday it had been about the way she had looked at the shopkeeper. The day before that, she could not even remember what had set him off. It did not matter anymore. The reasons were always different, but the result was always the same. Pain, fear, and the certainty that this was what she deserved. Her father had beaten her mother. Her mother had told her it was the way of things, that men were like storms and women were meant to weather them. When Marcus had started courting her at 18, he had seemed different at first, gentler, but she had been so young, so naive. The first time he raised his hand to her was 3 weeks after their wedding. She had been 22 now, and she could barely remember what it felt like to not be afraid. "Miss, are you all right?" The voice was deep and warm, tinged with genuine concern. Helena looked up sharply, her body tensing automatically, ready to flinch. A man stood a few feet away, tall and lean, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and eyes the color of desert sage. He wore dusty trail clothes and a worn leather vest, a hat in his hands as he regarded her with a gentleness that made her throat tight. "I am fine," she said automatically, turning away. It was the answer she always gave. "Forgive me for saying so, madam, but you do not look fine." He did not move closer, which she appreciated. Most men would have crowded her space, but he kept a respectful distance, his posture open and non-threatening. "It is none of your concern." Helena set down her glass and started to stand, but the room tilted dangerously. She had not eaten since yesterday morning, and the walk in the heat had taken more out of her than she realized. The man moved quickly, catching her elbow to steady her, but his touch was feather light, and he released her the moment she had her balance. "Easy there. When did you last eat?" "I told you it is none of your concern." But even as she said it, her voice lacked conviction. She was so tired, bone-deep tired of pretending, of surviving, of living in constant fear. "Isaiah Fletcher," he said, introducing himself with a small nod. "I just rode in from Texas, working my way north. I am a ranch hand, sometimes a trail guide, and I cannot in good conscience let a lady faint in a saloon without at least making sure she gets a decent meal." Helena stared at him, suspicious of his kindness. In her experience, men did not do things without expecting something in return. "Why do you care?" Isaiah's expression grew serious. "Because somebody should. Because you look like you have been carrying the weight of the world, and nobody deserves to carry that alone." There was something in his eyes, a sincerity that made her want to cry, which was ridiculous. She did not cry anymore. She had learned to swallow her tears years ago because crying only made Marcus angrier. "Helena Foster," she said finally, her voice barely audible. "And I cannot accept your charity. My husband would not approve." She watched as understanding dawned in Isaiah's eyes, saw the way his jaw tightened as he glanced at her bruised face. But he did not comment on it directly, which she appreciated. Instead, he said, "Then let me buy you a meal as a welcome gesture from one traveler to a local resident. No strings, no expectations, just food." Helena knew she should refuse. She knew she should go back to the homestead before Marcus got back from wherever he had gone this morning. But she was so hungry, so tired, and this stranger's kindness was like water in a desert. Against her better judgment, she nodded. Isaiah smiled, and it transformed his face, making him look younger, almost boyish despite the weathered lines around his eyes that spoke of years spent under the sun. "The boarding house down the street has the best stew in town, or so I was told. Shall we?" They walked side by side through the dusty street, and Helena could not help but notice how different Isaiah was from Marcus. Where her husband was loud and domineering, Isaiah moved with quiet confidence. Where Marcus demanded attention, Isaiah seemed content to simply be present. He did not grab her arm or walk too far ahead. He matched her pace, occasionally pointing out things in the town with a gentle commentary that required no response. The boarding house was run by a widow named Mrs. Chen, a Chinese woman who had come west with her husband during the mining boom and stayed after he died in a cave-in. She took one look at Helena's face and ushered them to a quiet corner table without a word, returning moments later with 2 bowls of rich beef stew and fresh bread. Helena ate slowly at first, self-conscious under Isaiah's gaze, but he had turned his attention to his own meal, giving her space. The food was delicious, and before she knew it, she had cleaned her bowl. Mrs. Chen appeared with seconds, setting them down with a gentle pat on Helena's shoulder. "Thank you," Helena whispered, feeling tears prick at her eyes. Such simple kindness should not have felt so overwhelming. "So, Helena Foster, tell me about Bisbee," Isaiah said, his tone conversational. "I have heard it is a copper mining town growing fast." It was a safe topic, and Helena found herself relaxing incrementally. "It is. The Copper Queen mine has brought in thousands of workers. The town has grown from almost nothing to over 4,000 people in just a few years. There are more saloons than churches, more brothels than schools." "Sounds like every other boomtown in the West," Isaiah said with a wry smile. "All rough edges and big dreams." "Some dreams are bigger than others," Helena said quietly. "Some people come here hoping to strike it rich, others just hope to survive." Isaiah set down his spoon, regarding her with those steady sage-colored eyes. "And which are you?" The question was too direct, too honest, and Helena felt her walls going up. "I should be getting back. My husband will be expecting his supper." "Does he know you are in town?" "No, he went to one of the neighboring homesteads this morning, but he could return at any time." Isaiah nodded slowly. "Will he be angry that you came to town?" Helena did not answer, but her silence spoke volumes. She stood, her legs steadier now that she had food in her belly. "Thank you for the meal, Mr. Fletcher. That was very kind of you." "Isaiah, please." He stood as well, reaching into his pocket to leave money on the table for Mrs. Chen. "And Helena, I am staying at the boarding house here, room 7. If you ever need anything, and I mean anything, you know where to find me." She wanted to tell him that she would not need anything, that she was fine, that she could handle her own problems. But the words would not come. Instead, she just nodded and hurried out into the afternoon heat. The walk back to the homestead felt longer than the walk to town. With each step, the brief respite of kindness faded, replaced by the familiar dread that lived in her chest like a stone. The small house came into view, Its weathered wood and sagging porch a testament to Marcus's lack of interest in maintaining anything, including their marriage. His horse was not in the small corral, which meant he had not returned yet. Helena felt a wave of relief so strong it nearly made her dizzy. She went inside and immediately started preparing supper, her hands moving through the familiar motions. Beans, salt pork, cornbread. Simple fare, but Marcus had never been one to appreciate elaborate meals anyway. She touched her lip gently, feeling the swelling. It would be worse by evening, more obvious. She would need to come up with an explanation, though Marcus rarely cared if she had one or not. Sometimes he seemed to enjoy seeing the evidence of his temper on her skin. Helena had married him thinking it was her only option. Her parents had died within months of each other when she was 17, leaving her orphaned and destitute. Marcus had been 25, a homesteader with his own land, and he had offered marriage and security. She had said yes, because the alternative was working in one of the brothels or starving on the streets. For a while. She had tried to tell herself it was not so bad. Other women had it worse. At least Marcus provided food and shelter. At least she was not alone. But those justifications had worn thin over the years, especially as his violence escalated. She had thought about leaving, but where would she go? She had no money, no family, no skills beyond keeping house. The law would not help her. In Arizona territory, a woman was her husband's property, and what happened behind closed doors was considered a private matter. She had heard stories of women who ran away, only to be dragged back and beaten worse for the attempt. So she stayed, and she survived, and she tried not to hope for anything better because hope was dangerous. Hope made you careless. But as she stood in the small kitchen, kneading dough for cornbread, she could not stop thinking about Isaiah Fletcher and his kind eyes. She could not stop thinking about the way he had kept his distance, respecting her space. The way he had bought her food without demanding anything in return. The way he had looked at her like she was a person worthy of care. It was dangerous to think about such things. The sound of hoofbeats made her heart lurch. She quickly wiped her hands on her apron and smoothed her hair back, checking her reflection in the small mirror near the door. The bruise was darker now, impossible to hide. She turned away from the mirror and busied herself at the stove. Marcus came in smelling of whiskey and sweat. He was a big man, broad-shouldered and thick through the middle with a ruddy face and small, mean eyes. He had been handsome once, or so people told her, but she had never seen it. "Where were you this afternoon?" he demanded without preamble. Helena's stomach dropped. How did he know she had left? "I went to town for a few supplies," she said carefully, keeping her voice even. "You are lying. I saw Jenkins on the road. He said he saw you coming out of the boarding house with some cowboy." Marcus crossed the small room in 2 strides, grabbing her arm hard enough to bruise. "What were you doing with another man?" "Nothing, I swear. I felt faint in the heat, and he helped me to the boarding house for water." The lie came easily because she had learned to be quick on her feet when it came to deflecting Marcus's anger. "You felt faint," Marcus repeated, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You expect me to believe that? It is the truth. I have not been feeling well." His grip tightened and she bit back a gasp of pain. "You are not to go to town without my permission. You are not to speak to other men. You are not to do anything without asking me first. Do you understand?" "Yes," Helena whispered, hating herself for the fear in her voice. "I did not hear you." "Yes, I understand." Marcus released her with a shove that sent her stumbling against the stove. She caught herself, her palm hitting the hot surface. Pain seared through her hand, but she bit her lip to keep from crying out. Showing pain only encouraged him. "Get my supper on the table," he ordered, throwing himself into a chair. "And it better be good. I have had a hell of a day." Helena served him with shaking hands, her palm throbbing where she had burned it. Marcus ate in sullen silence, occasionally shooting her dark looks. When he finished, he stood and grabbed his hat. "I am going to the saloon. Do not wait up." The door slammed behind him, and Helena finally allowed herself to breathe. She sank into a chair and cradled her burned hand, tears streaming down her face. She cried silently, years of practice making it second nature to keep her grief quiet. This was her life. This was all it would ever be. But even as she thought it, she remembered Isaiah Fletcher's words. "You look like you have been carrying the weight of the world, and nobody deserves to carry that alone." What would it be like to not be alone? The thought was dangerous, but she could not shake it. 3 days passed before Helena saw Isaiah again. Marcus had been in a foul mood, drinking heavily and finding fault with everything she did. She had a new bruise on her ribs and rope burns on her wrists from where he had tied her to the bedpost the night before, punishing her for some imagined slight. She was in the general store, carefully counting out coins for flour and sugar, when she felt someone watching her. She looked up and met Isaiah's eyes across the store. He was standing near the door, a sack of supplies in his arms, and the concern on his face when he saw her made her want to run. She turned back to the shopkeeper, paid for her purchases, and hurried toward the exit. But Isaiah was there, holding the door open for her. "Helena," he said softly, "please just talk to me for a moment." "I cannot," she said, glancing around nervously. "If someone sees us talking, if it gets back to my husband again. Then walk with me where no one can see." He gestured to the alley beside the store, narrow and shaded from the sun. Every instinct told her to refuse, to go straight home. But something in his expression, some combination of concern and determination, made her nod. They walked into the alley and Isaiah set down his supplies, turning to face her. "Helena, what that man is doing to you is wrong," she laughed, a bitter sound. "That man is my husband. That does not give him the right to hurt you. The law says otherwise." She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the heat. "A wife is her husband's property. What happens in our home is our business. The law is wrong." Isaiah took a step closer, then seemed to think better of it and stopped. "Helena, I have seen a lot of things in my years. I have seen cruelty and violence, and I have seen what it does to people. But I have also seen kindness and love, real love, the kind that builds you up instead of tearing you down." "Love," Helena repeated, shaking her head. "I do not think I believe in that anymore." "Why not?" "Because love is just another word for pain. My mother loved my father, and he beat her until the day she died. I thought I could love Marcus, or at least tolerate him, but he has shown me that love is just an excuse for men to control women." Isaiah's expression grew pained. "Is that really what you think love is?" "It is all I have ever known." "Then let me show you something different." The words were soft, almost pleading. "Let me show you that love is supposed to feel safe, that it is supposed to be a refuge, not a battlefield. That you deserve to be treated with kindness and respect." Helena stared at him, her heart pounding. "Why do you even care? You do not know me. I am nothing to you." "You are not nothing," Isaiah said firmly. "You are a person who deserves better than what you have been given. And maybe I care because someone cared for me once when I needed it most." "What do you mean?" Isaiah looked away, his jaw working. "When I was 20, I watched my father beat my mother to death. I was too young, too scared to stop him. After she died, he turned his attention to me and my younger sister. I took the beatings to protect her, and when I turned 21, I took her and we ran. We ran as far west as we could, and we started over." Helena felt tears prick her eyes. "Where is your sister now?" "She is married to a good man in San Antonio, a preacher who treats her like she hung the moon. She has 3 children, and she is happy." Isaiah smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. She found the kind of love everyone deserves. And I swore that if I ever saw someone suffering the way my mother suffered, the way my sister suffered, I would not just stand by and do nothing. There is nothing you can do, Helena said, wiping at her eyes. I am trapped. You are only trapped if you believe you are. Isaiah reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a small leather pouch. I have been saving for years, planning to buy my own ranch someday. There is enough here for 2 train tickets north, enough to start over somewhere new. Come with me, Helena. Leave this place, leave him. Let me help you. The offer hung in the air between them, impossible and tempting. Helena wanted to say yes so badly it hurt, but the fear was stronger than the hope. I cannot. He would come after me. He would find me and drag me back, and it would be so much worse. Not if we went far enough. Not if we changed your name and started completely fresh. You do not understand. You would be risking everything for someone you barely know. What if I am not worth it? What if I am too broken to be fixed? Isaiah stepped closer, and this time Helena did not flinch. He looked at her with such intensity that she felt it in her bones. You are not broken. You are hurt, and there is a difference. And you are worth it, Helena. You are worth everything. She wanted to believe him. God, how she wanted to believe him. But a lifetime of pain and fear was not so easily overcome. I need time to think. Time is something you might not have, Isaiah said gently. How long until he goes too far? How long until he does not stop? The question pierced through her defenses because it was one she had asked herself 100 times. How long until Marcus's fists did more than bruise? How long until his anger turned deadly? Where would we go? She asked, her voice shaking. North to Wyoming. I have a friend with a ranch there, someone I trust. He would give us both work, let us stay until we figured things out. You could use a different name, start a new life. You could be free. Free. The word was so foreign, so impossible that Helena almost laughed, but she did not. Instead, she said, give me 2 days. I need to think about this, really think about it. Isaiah nodded, though she could see the worry in his eyes. 2 days. But Helena, if things get worse, if he hurts you again, come find me. Day or night, I do not care. Room 7 at the boarding house. Promise me. I promise. They stood in the alley for a moment longer, and then Helena gathered her courage and left. She felt Isaiah's gaze on her back as she walked away, and for the first time in years, she felt a tiny flicker of hope. That night, Marcus came home drunk and mean. He picked a fight over nothing, shoving Helena into the wall hard enough to knock the breath from her lungs. When she tried to defend herself, tried to explain, he backhanded her across the face. She tasted blood, felt her vision swim. You are worthless, he snarled, his breath hot and sour on her face. No good for anything except cleaning and cooking, and you cannot even do that right. Helena did not respond. She had learned that silence was sometimes the safest option. Marcus grabbed her by the hair, dragging her toward the bedroom, and she knew what was coming. It happened sometimes when he was drunk and angry, this brutal assertion of his ownership over her body. She endured it the way she endured everything else, by leaving her mind and going somewhere far away where the pain could not reach her. Afterward, Marcus passed out on the bed, snoring loudly. Helena lay beside him, staring at the ceiling, her body aching. She thought about Isaiah's offer, about freedom, about a life where she did not have to be afraid every moment of every day. She thought about what it would be like to be safe. Slowly, carefully, she eased out of bed. Marcus did not stir. She went to the small trunk where she kept her few personal belongings and pulled out the only photograph she had of her parents. Her mother looked young and hopeful in the picture, taken before years of abuse had stolen the light from her eyes. Helena did not want to end up like her mother. She did not want to die in this house, alone and broken. She made her decision. Moving quickly and quietly, Helena packed a small bag with her few possessions. A change of clothes, her mother's photograph, her grandmother's wedding ring that she had hidden from Marcus. She counted the coins she had managed to squirrel away over the years, a pitiful amount, but it was something. Then she walked out of the house and into the night. The walk to town was terrifying. Every sound made her jump, certain that Marcus had woken and come after her. But the night was quiet except for the chirping of crickets and the distant howl of a coyote. The moon was full, lighting her way. Bisbee was still awake despite the late hour. Lights spilled from saloon windows and rowdy laughter echoed through the streets. Helena kept to the shadows, making her way to the boarding house. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. She stood outside the boarding house for a long moment, staring up at the second-floor windows. Room 7, Isaiah had said. She could turn back now. She could go home and pretend this had never happened. She could survive the way she had always survived, but she did not want to just survive anymore. She wanted to live. Helena went inside. Mrs. Chen was dozing behind the front desk but woke when Helena approached. The older woman took one look at Helena's face and stood without a word, coming around the desk. "You need help," Mrs. Chen said. "It was not a question. I need to see Isaiah Fletcher, room 7. Mrs. Chen studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Come." She led Helena up the narrow stairs to the second floor and knocked softly on the door marked 7. There was a moment of silence, then the sound of footsteps. The door opened, and Isaiah stood there in his shirt sleeves, his hair mussed from sleep. His eyes widened when he saw Helena. "What happened?" he asked urgently, taking in her disheveled appearance and the fresh bruise on her face. "I am ready," Helena said simply. "I want to go with you. I want to be free." Isaiah's expression transformed, relief and determination flooding his features. "Come in quickly." He ushered her inside and closed the door. The room was small but clean, with a narrow bed and a washstand. Isaiah's few belongings were neatly packed in saddlebags near the door. "Did he hurt you tonight?" Isaiah asked, his voice tight with controlled anger. Helena nodded, not trusting herself to speak. "Sit down. Let me look at your injuries." Isaiah pulled out the single chair and Helena sank into it, exhausted now that she had stopped moving. He lit the lamp and brought it closer, his touch gentle as he examined her face. "Your lip is split again, and that is a nasty bruise on your cheek. Does anything feel broken?" "No, I do not think so. He has done worse." The admission made her feel ashamed, which was foolish. She had nothing to be ashamed of. Isaiah crouched in front of her, his hands resting lightly on the arms of the chair. "Helena, look at me." She did, meeting those steady sage-colored eyes. "You are brave. What you did tonight, leaving him, coming here, that takes more courage than most people have in their entire lives. You should be proud of yourself." "I am scared," she whispered. "I know. But you are not alone anymore. We are going to leave tonight, right now, before he realizes you are gone. The next train to Denver leaves at 4 in the morning. From Denver, we can get to Wyoming. By the time he figures out where you went, you will be too far away for him to follow. What if he comes after us? What if he finds us? Then I will deal with him." Isaiah's voice was calm but firm. "I will not let him hurt you again, Helena. I swear that on my life." There was something in his tone, a quiet certainty that made her believe him. Isaiah stood and began gathering his things. "We need to leave now. Do you have anything else you need from your house?" "No, I brought everything that matters." "Good, then let us go." They left through the back door of the boarding house, Mrs. Chen watching them go with knowing eyes. She pressed a small wrapped package into Helena's hands as they passed. "Food for the journey," she said simply. "Thank you," Helena whispered, touched by the gesture. They moved through the dark streets of Bisbee like ghosts, keeping to the shadows. Isaiah had his horse stabled near the train depot, a sturdy bay gelding named Copper. He saddled the horse quickly and efficiently, then helped Helena mount. She sat sideways in front of him, her small bag clutched to her chest as Isaiah swung up behind her. "Hold on," he murmured, and she felt his arm come around her waist, steady and secure. They rode through the night, leaving Bisbee behind. The train depot was in a town called Fairbank, about 10 miles north, and Isaiah pushed Copper at a steady pace. Helena kept glancing behind them, expecting to see Marcus thundering after them on his big roan horse, but the road remained empty. Dawn was just beginning to lighten the eastern sky when they reached Fairbank. The small depot was quiet, with only a sleepy clerk behind the ticket window. Isaiah bought 2 tickets to Denver, using bills from the leather pouch he had shown Helena before. They waited on the platform as the sky slowly brightened from black to deep blue to pale gold. Helena was exhausted, her body aching, but she did not dare close her eyes. She kept watching the road, waiting for Marcus to appear. "He does not know you are gone yet," Isaiah said softly, reading her thoughts. "Even if he woke up and found you missing, he would search the house first, then the town. By the time he thinks to check the train depot, we will be long gone. I hope you are right." "I am." Isaiah reached over and took her hand, his palm warm and calloused against hers. "You are safe now, Helena. I know it does not feel like it yet, but you are." The train whistle sounded in the distance, and Helena felt a surge of hope so strong it nearly took her breath away. The locomotive pulled into the station, belching steam and smoke, and Isaiah helped her board. They found seats in a nearly empty car, and Helena finally allowed herself to relax incrementally. As the train pulled away from the station, she watched Arizona territory fade into the distance. With every mile, she felt lighter, as though the weight she had been carrying for years was finally lifting. "What is Wyoming like?" she asked Isaiah, partly to distract herself from the fear that still gnawed at her. "Beautiful," Isaiah said with a smile. "Wide open spaces, mountains that touch the sky, air so clean it almost hurts to breathe. My friend's ranch is in a valley near the town of Buffalo. The grass is green even in summer because of the snowmelt from the mountains. There are elk and antelope, wildflowers in the spring. It is like another world compared to the desert. It sounds wonderful. It is. You will love it." Isaiah paused, then added, "I want you to know that I do not expect anything from you, Helena. When we get to Wyoming, you will have your own space, your own life. I am not doing this to trap you in another situation like the one you just left." Helena turned to look at him, surprised by the statement. "I know that. Do you? Because I need you to really understand. I care about you and I want to help you, but I am not going to demand anything in return. Your life is your own now. You make your own choices." "I believe you," Helena said softly, and strangely she did. In the short time she had known Isaiah, he had shown her more respect and kindness than Marcus had in 4 years of marriage. "Thank you, Isaiah, for everything." "You do not need to thank me. I am just doing what is right." They rode in comfortable silence for a while, watching the landscape change outside the window. Helena felt herself beginning to relax, the constant tension that had lived in her shoulders for years slowly easing. She was exhausted, and without meaning to, she leaned her head against Isaiah's shoulder and closed her eyes. When she woke, the sun was high in the sky and the train was pulling into a station. Isaiah was still beside her, patient and steady, his hand resting lightly on her arm. "We are in Albuquerque," he said quietly. "We have about an hour layover before the next train. Are you hungry?" Helena realized she was starving. They disembarked and found a small restaurant near the station where they ate a simple meal of eggs and potatoes. Helena could not stop looking around, half expecting Marcus to burst through the door at any moment, but no one paid them any attention. "You need to stop looking over your shoulder," Isaiah said gently. "He does not know where we are. I know. It is just hard to believe I am really free." "You are, and in time you will believe it." Isaiah reached across the table and covered her hand with his. "Helena, I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. Do you regret coming with me?" "No," she said immediately, and she meant it. "No, I do not regret it at all. I am scared, but I do not regret it." "Good. Because we are in this together now, whatever comes." They caught the next train, continuing north. The journey to Denver took another full day, and by the time they arrived, Helena was so tired she could barely stand. Isaiah found them a small hotel near the station, renting 2 rooms side by side. "Get some rest," he told her, handing her a key. "We leave for Wyoming tomorrow afternoon. That will give us time to rest and get proper supplies." Helena went to her room and locked the door behind her. The room was small but clean, with a real bed and fresh linens. She took off her boots and lay down, staring at the ceiling. She should have been relieved, grateful even, but instead she just felt numb. For 4 years, she had lived in a constant state of fear and pain. Now that she was free of it, she did not know who she was without that fear. It had defined her for so long that she had forgotten there was a person underneath it. She thought about Isaiah's words. "Let me show you that love is supposed to feel safe." Could she believe that? Could she unlearn everything she had been taught about love and relationships? The idea seemed impossible, and yet Isaiah himself was proof that not all men were like her father or Marcus. He had been nothing but kind to her, respectful and gentle, never once making her feel threatened or afraid. Helena rolled onto her side and allowed herself to cry. She cried for the girl she had been before life had beaten her down. She cried for the years she had lost to Marcus's cruelty. She cried for her mother, who had never escaped. And finally, she cried tears of relief because she was free, really and truly free, and maybe, just maybe, she could build a new life. When the tears finally stopped, Helena felt lighter. She got up and washed her face in the basin, looking at her reflection in the small mirror. Her bruises were fading to yellow and green, her split lip healing. She looked tired and worn, but there was something else in her eyes now, something that had not been there before: hope. The next morning, Isaiah took her shopping. He bought her new clothes, practical trousers and shirts suitable for ranch work, as well as a warm coat for the Wyoming winters. He bought her boots that actually fit, a wide-brimmed hat to protect her from the sun, and a sturdy leather bag to replace her threadbare one. "You do not have to do all this," Helena protested as he added item after item to their pile. "I want to," Isaiah said simply. "You are starting a new life. You should have new things to start it with." Helena felt tears prick her eyes again. She seemed to be crying at everything these days, which was strange because she had not cried in years. "I do not know how I will ever repay you." "You do not need to repay me, Helena. This is not a debt." Isaiah paused in the general store, turning to face her. "I need you to understand something. I am not doing this because I expect anything from you. I am not keeping a tally of what I spend or what I do for you. I am doing this because I care about you and I want to see you happy. That is all." "Why?" The question burst out of her before she could stop it. "Why do you care so much about someone you barely know?" Isaiah was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "I told you about my mother and my sister. What I did not tell you is that after we ran away, we almost did not make it. We had no money, no food, nowhere to go. We would have died on the trail if a couple had not found us and taken us in. They were ranchers, older folks with no children of their own. They gave us food and shelter, and they never asked for anything in return. They just helped us because it was the right thing to do." He picked up a warm blanket, adding it to their pile. "The woman, Mrs. Sarah Ingram, told me something I never forgot. She said that kindness is not a transaction. It is a gift, freely given, and the only thing she asked in return was that someday, if I saw someone who needed help, I would offer it the way she offered it to us." Helena felt her throat tighten. "So this is you paying forward her kindness?" "Partly, but it is more than that now." Isaiah met her eyes, and the warmth in his gaze made her heart skip. "I care about you, Helena. I know it has only been a few days, but I care about you, and I want to see you safe and happy. That is reason enough." They finished shopping and returned to the hotel to pack. The train to Cheyenne left at 2 in the afternoon, and from Cheyenne, they would take a stage coach to Buffalo. Isaiah estimated the whole journey would take another 3 days. As the train pulled out of Denver, Helena watched the city fade into the distance and felt the last of her fear begin to dissolve. Marcus could not reach her here. She was too far away, moving too fast. She was free. The landscape changed dramatically as they traveled north. The flat plains of Colorado gave way to rolling hills, and then suddenly the mountains rose up, massive and breathtaking. Helena had never seen anything like them. She pressed her face to the window like a child, marveling at the snow-capped peaks that seemed to pierce the clouds. "Wait until you see the Medicine Bow Mountains," Isaiah said with a grin. "Even more impressive." They reached Cheyenne late that night and found another hotel. This time, Helena did not feel the need to lock her door immediately. She was beginning to trust that she was truly safe. The next morning, they boarded the stagecoach to Buffalo. The coach was crowded with 6 passengers squeezed onto benches designed for 4. Isaiah made sure Helena had a window seat, and he sat beside her, his presence a comforting constant. The other passengers were a mix of types. A traveling salesman with a nervous laugh, an older woman going to visit her daughter, and a young couple who could not stop touching each other, their love obvious and sweet. Helena watched them with a mixture of longing and disbelief. Was that what love was supposed to look like? Tender touches and soft smiles instead of fists and fear, as if sensing her thoughts, Isaiah leaned close and whispered, "That is what real love looks like. That is what you deserve." Helena looked up at him, at the kindness in his eyes, and felt something shift in her chest. It was too soon to call it love. She did not even know if she was capable of love anymore. But it was something, a warmth that had nothing to do with the summer heat. The journey to Buffalo took 2 days, with overnight stops at way stations along the route. The landscape grew more rugged and beautiful with each mile. Helena saw herds of pronghorn antelope racing across the plains, eagles soaring overhead, and once in the distance, a small group of elk grazing near a stream. "This is incredible," she breathed, unable to tear her eyes away from the window. "This is freedom," Isaiah said simply. They arrived in Buffalo in the late afternoon. The town was smaller than Bisbee, nestled in a valley between the Bighorn Mountains to the west and the rolling plains to the east. The buildings were a mix of log cabins and rough-hewn structures, and the main street was lined with cottonwood trees. Isaiah hired a wagon to take them to his friend's ranch, about 5 miles outside of town. As they drove through the valley, Helena felt a sense of peace settle over her. The air was clean and cool, carrying the scent of pine and wildflowers. The sky was so blue it almost hurt to look at, and the mountains loomed in the distance, majestic and eternal. "There it is," Isaiah said, pointing ahead. The ranch came into view, a sprawling complex of buildings surrounded by split-rail fences. There were several barns, a large main house, and a cluster of smaller cabins that Helena assumed were for the ranch hands. Horses grazed in the pastures, and she could hear the lowing of cattle in the distance. As they pulled up to the main house, a man emerged onto the porch. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with graying hair and a weathered face that spoke of years spent working outdoors. His eyes lit up when he saw Isaiah. "Isaiah Fletcher, you old dog," the man called out, striding forward with his hand extended. "I was wondering if you would ever take me up on my offer." Isaiah jumped down from the wagon and clasped the man's hand, pulling him into a brief embrace. "Jack, good to see you. I hope your offer still stands." "Of course it does. I always need good men." Jack's gaze shifted to Helena and his expression softened. "And who is this?" "This is Helena Foster," Isaiah said, helping her down from the wagon. "She is a friend who needed a fresh start. I told her you might have worked for her as well." Jack studied Helena for a moment, his sharp eyes missing nothing. She knew he saw the fading bruises, the way she held herself carefully, the wariness in her eyes, but he did not comment on it. Instead, he smiled warmly and extended his hand. "Jack Morrison. This is my ranch and you are welcome here, Miss Foster. Can you cook?" "Yes, sir," Helena said, shaking his hand. His grip was firm but not crushing, respectful. "Good. My wife passed 2 years ago and I have been surviving on my own cooking ever since." The ranch hands will be thrilled to have a woman's touch in the kitchen again. Jack gestured toward the main house. "Come inside, both of you. Let us get you settled." The main house was spacious and comfortable, with log walls and large windows that let in plenty of light. Jack showed Helena to a small room off the kitchen that had clearly been a maid's quarters once. It had a narrow bed, a wardrobe, and a window that looked out over the mountains. "Will this do?" Jack asked. "It is perfect," Helena said, meaning it. The room was simple but clean, and it was hers. Her own space, where she did not have to be afraid. Jack showed Isaiah to one of the cabins where the ranch hands stayed, a short walk from the main house. When they returned, Jack had laid out a simple supper of bread, cheese, and cold roast beef. As they ate, Jack asked Isaiah about his travels, and Isaiah filled him in on the years since they had last met. Helena learned that they had worked together on a ranch in Texas years ago, and Jack had moved to Wyoming to start his own operation. He ran a cattle ranch with about 50 head of cattle and a dozen horses. "I could use both of you," Jack said, looking between them. "Isaiah, you know cattle and horses better than most men I have met. Helena, if you can cook and keep house, that would be a godsend. I will pay fair wages and provide room and board. What do you say?" "I say yes," Isaiah said immediately, glancing at Helena. "If Helena agrees." "I agree," Helena said. "Thank you, Mr. Morrison. You are very kind to take us in." "Call me Jack, and it is not kindness, it is good business." "You will earn your keep. I promise you that. Ranch work is not easy." Over the next few weeks, Helena settled into a routine that was both strange and wonderful. She woke each morning to the sound of birdsong instead of Marcus's angry voice. She cooked breakfast for Jack and the half-dozen ranch hands, hearty meals of eggs, bacon, biscuits, and gravy. She kept the main house clean, did laundry, and tended the vegetable garden behind the house. The work was hard, but it was honest, and for the first time in her life, Helena felt useful in a way that had nothing to do with fear or obligation. Jack praised her cooking, the ranch hands thanked her for clean clothes, and no one raised a hand to her or spoke to her with cruelty. Isaiah worked with the cattle and horses, and Helena saw him every day. He often came to the kitchen for coffee in the morning, and they would talk quietly before the day began in earnest. He told her stories about his travels, about the places he had seen and the people he had met. She told him about her childhood, before her father's violence had defined her life, and she was surprised to find happy memories buried beneath the pain. Slowly, Incrementally, Helena began to heal. The bruises faded completely, and the hunted look in her eyes gradually disappeared. She laughed for the first time in years when one of the ranch hands, a young man named Tommy, told a ridiculous joke at supper. The sound of her own laughter startled her, but it felt good. Jack noticed the change in her. One evening, as she was cleaning up after supper, he lingered in the kitchen. "You are looking better, Helena," he said gently. "More yourself." "I feel better," she admitted. "This place, this work, it is good for me, I am glad. You deserve good things." Jack paused, then added, "Isaiah is a good man, one of the best I have ever known." Helena felt her cheeks warm. "Yes, he is. He cares about you, you know. I see the way he looks at you. I know. And I care about him too, but I do not know if I am ready for anything more than friendship. After everything I have been through with Marcus, the idea of being with another man, even a good one, is terrifying." Jack nodded in understanding. "Take your time. Isaiah is not going anywhere, and he is not the type to push. But do not let your past steal your future, Helena. You deserve to be loved the way you should have been loved all along." His words stayed with her as summer turned to autumn. The days grew shorter and cooler, and the aspens in the mountains turned brilliant gold. Helena had been at the ranch for nearly 3 months, and she had never been happier. But Jack's words kept echoing in her mind. Did she deserve to be loved? Could she even accept love if it was offered? Isaiah never pushed her, just as Jack had predicted. He was patient and kind, always respectful of her space. But she could not deny the way her heart lifted when she saw him, or the way his smile made her feel warm and safe. She was falling in love with him, slowly and carefully, and the realization both thrilled and terrified her. One afternoon in early October, Isaiah asked her to go riding with him. They rode out into the valley, the mountains rising on either side, the air crisp and clean. They stopped near a stream and Isaiah helped her dismount. "I wanted to talk to you," he said, suddenly serious. Helena felt her stomach clench with anxiety. "What is it?" "I have been thinking about what happens next, for both of us." Isaiah ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture she had come to recognize. "Jack has offered to make me his foreman. It is a good position, steady work, a real future, but I wanted to talk to you before I accepted because what I do affects you too." "How does it affect me?" "Because I care about you, Helena. I have cared about you since the first day I saw you in that saloon in Bisbee. And I want to build a life here, but I only want to do that if you are part of it." Helena's heart was pounding. "Isaiah, I do not know what to say." "You do not have to say anything right now. I am not asking you to marry me or make any promises. I am just asking if you can see a future here with me, if you can imagine a life where you feel safe and loved and happy." She looked at him, at the hope and vulnerability in his eyes, and felt something break open inside her. "I spent so many years believing that love was pain," she said softly. "I thought that was all it could be, but you have shown me something different. You have shown me that love can be gentle and kind, that it can make you feel safe instead of scared." "I want to keep showing you that," Isaiah said, stepping closer. "Every day, for as long as you will let me. Helena, you are the strongest, bravest person I have ever met. And I would be honored if you would let me love you the way you deserve to be loved." Tears streamed down Helena's face, but they were good tears, healing tears. "I am so scared," she admitted. "I am scared that I do not know how to love someone back. I am scared that I am too damaged." "You are not damaged," Isaiah said firmly. He reached up and gently wiped away her tears. "You are hurt, but hurt can heal, and you are already so much stronger than you think. Helena, you do not have to be perfect. You do not have to have all the answers. You just have to be willing to try. What if I hurt you? What if I am not enough? You are more than enough, and you could never hurt me the way you think you could. Love is not about being perfect, Helena. It is about showing up, being honest, being present. It is about choosing each other every day, even when it is hard. Helena looked into his eyes and saw nothing but sincerity and warmth. She thought about the past 3 months, about the way Isaiah had never once made her feel pressured or afraid. She thought about the way he made her laugh, the way he listened when she talked, the way he had given her space to heal without ever making her feel alone. She thought about what love could be instead of what it had been. "Yes," she said, her voice stronger now. "Yes, I can see a future here. With you." Isaiah's face transformed, joy lighting his features. "Really, really. I do not know what that future looks like exactly, but I want to find out. I want to try, Isaiah. I want to learn how to love and be loved." He took her hands in his touch gentle and warm. "We will figure it out together. There is no rush, no pressure. We will take it one day at a time." Helena felt something she had not felt in years, genuine happiness. It bubbled up inside her, bright and effervescent. "One day at a time," she agreed. Isaiah leaned forward slowly, giving her plenty of time to pull away, and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. It was chaste and tender, a promise rather than a demand. Helena closed her eyes, savoring the feeling of being touched with such gentleness. They stayed by the stream until the sun began to set, talking about their hopes and dreams for the future. Isaiah wanted to save up enough to buy his own land someday, maybe a small ranch where he could raise horses. Helena admitted that she had always wanted children, but she had been too afraid to bring a child into the world with Marcus. "Someday," Isaiah said, "when you are ready, we will have children, and they will grow up knowing what real love looks like. They will never know the fear you knew." The promise made Helena's heart ache in the best way. They rode back to the ranch as darkness fell, the stars emerging one by one in the vast Wyoming sky. That night, Helena slept better than she had in years. The weeks that followed were the happiest of Helena's life. She and Isaiah courted properly, spending time together whenever their work allowed. They took long walks in the evenings, went riding on Sundays, and sat together after supper, talking about everything and nothing. Isaiah was patient with her, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. He held her hand, kissed her cheek, and treated her with a respect that still sometimes took her breath away. And slowly, Helena's fear began to dissolve completely, replaced by trust and love. In November, Isaiah asked Jack for permission to marry Helena. Jack gave his blessing enthusiastically, and Isaiah proposed to Helena on a cold, clear evening with the stars shining overhead. "Helena Foster," he said, dropping to one knee in the snow outside the main house, "will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life showing you what love is supposed to feel like?" "Yes," Helena said through happy tears. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." They were married in Buffalo's small church on a snowy December morning. Helena wore a simple blue dress that Jack had bought for her as a wedding gift, and Isaiah wore his best clothes, his hair neatly combed. Jack stood up with Isaiah, and Mrs. Chen, who had traveled all the way from Arizona for the occasion, stood with Helena. The ceremony was short and sweet, and when the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Isaiah kissed Helena with such tenderness that she felt it all the way to her toes. The ranch hands threw them a party at the main house, with food and music and dancing. Helena danced with her new husband, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly safe in a man's arms. That night, in the small cabin that Jack had given them as a wedding present, Isaiah made love to his wife with patience and care, showing her that intimacy could be beautiful instead of brutal. Helena cried afterward, but they were tears of healing and joy. "I love you," she whispered to Isaiah in the darkness. I did not think I was capable of love, but I love you so much it scares me." "I love you too," Isaiah said, holding her close. "And you never have to be scared again. I am here and I am not going anywhere." The years that followed were good ones. Helena and Isaiah worked hard on the ranch, saving their money and building their life together. In 1884, Jack made Isaiah his full partner in the ranch, splitting the profits equally. That same year, Helena gave birth to their first child, a son they named Henry. Holding her baby for the first time, Helena marveled at the tiny, perfect life she and Isaiah had created together. This child would never know fear or violence. He would grow up surrounded by love and safety. 2 years later, they had a daughter, whom they named Rose. Isaiah was an attentive, loving father, and watching him with their children filled Helena with such joy that she sometimes could barely contain it. In 1888, Jack passed away peacefully in his sleep, leaving the entire ranch to Isaiah and Helena. It was a bittersweet moment. They mourned the loss of their friend and mentor, but they were grateful for the legacy he had left them. They renamed the ranch the Safe Haven, a nod to what the place had been for both of them. They expanded the operation, hiring more hands and increasing the herd. The ranch prospered under their care, becoming one of the most successful operations in the region. Helena threw herself into ranch life with enthusiasm. She learned to ride as well as any cowboy, helped with branding and roundups, and became known throughout the territory for her skill in breaking horses. She also became active in the community, advocating for women and children who were trapped in violent situations the way she had been. When Wyoming granted women the right to vote in 1889, Helena was one of the first in line at the polling place. She thought about how far she had come from the terrified, beaten woman who had walked into that Bisbee saloon 7 years earlier. In 1890, they had another son, whom they named Jack in honor of their benefactor. And in 1893, they had one more daughter, little Sarah, named for the woman who had helped Isaiah and his sister all those years ago. Their 4 children grew up strong and healthy, surrounded by love and laughter. Isaiah taught his sons to be gentle and respectful, to treat women as equals, to use their strength to protect rather than to harm. Helena taught her daughters to be strong and independent, to never accept less than they deserved, to know their own worth. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Isaiah and Helena rode out to the spot by the stream where he had first told her he wanted a future with her. They dismounted and stood together, looking out at the mountains. "You remember what you told me that day?" Helena asked, leaning against her husband. "I asked if you could see a future here with me," Isaiah said, wrapping his arms around her. "I was so scared. I thought I was too broken to ever be whole again." And now, Helena turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had saved her life in every way that mattered. "Now I know that I was never broken. I was just hurting, and you showed me how to heal. You showed me that love is not supposed to hurt, that it is supposed to feel safe." Isaiah kissed her, a kiss that still made her heart race even after 10 years of marriage. "You saved me too, you know. You gave me a purpose, a reason to put down roots and build something lasting. You gave me a family and a home. You gave me everything." "We saved each other," Helena said. "Yes, we did." They stood together as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold. Helena thought about the girl she had been, the one who had believed that pain and love were synonymous. She wished she could go back and tell that girl that she was wrong, that real love was patient and kind, that it built you up instead of tearing you down. But she could not go back. She could only move forward, cherishing every moment of the beautiful life she and Isaiah had built together. The years continued to pass, bringing both joys and sorrows as all lives do. Their children grew and eventually married, giving Isaiah and Helena grandchildren to spoil and love. The ranch continued to prosper, and the safe haven became known throughout Wyoming as a place where anyone in need could find refuge and work. Helena never forgot where she had come from or how close she had come to losing everything. She continued to help women who were trapped in violent situations, offering them work at the ranch and a safe place to heal. Isaiah supported her efforts wholeheartedly, and together they helped dozens of women over the years. In the autumn of 1910, Helena and Isaiah celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary surrounded by their children and grandchildren. They were in their 50s now, their hair graying, their faces lined with the passage of time, but their love for each other had only deepened over the years. Henry, their eldest, stood to make a toast. "To my parents," he said, raising his glass. "You showed all of us what love is supposed to look like. You built a legacy not just of land and cattle, but of kindness and strength. You taught us that love is about choosing each other every day, about being each other's safe harbor in the storms of life. We love you both." As Helena looked around at her family, at the life she and Isaiah had built from the ashes of her painful past, she felt overwhelming gratitude. She had thought love was pain, had believed she was destined for a life of fear and suffering. But Isaiah had shown her a different way. He had shown her that love could be gentle and kind, that it could heal instead of harm. She reached for Isaiah's hand, and he squeezed it gently, his touch still sending warmth through her after all these years. They had survived so much together, built so much together. They had created a family and a home filled with love and laughter. That night, as they lay in bed in the house they had built together, Isaiah pulled Helena close. "Do you ever have regrets?" he asked softly. "About what? About the years you lost, about the pain you endured." Helena was quiet for a moment, considering. "I regret that I had to suffer," she said finally. "I regret that so many women still suffer the way I did, but I do not regret the journey that brought me here to you. Everything I went through made me who I am. It taught me strength and resilience. It taught me the value of real love." "You are the strongest person I know," Isaiah said, kissing her temple. "And I am grateful every single day that you walked into that saloon in Bisbee, that you trusted me enough to take a chance, that you let me love you." "I am grateful you never gave up on me," Helena said. "Even when I did not believe I was worth saving, you saw something in me worth fighting for. Because you were always worth fighting for. You still are." They fell asleep in each other's arms, just as they had every night for 30 years. And Helena knew, with absolute certainty, that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The seasons continued their eternal cycle. Spring brought new calves and foals. Summer brought the hard work of haying and roundups. Autumn brought the turning leaves and harvest, and winter brought quiet evenings by the fire. Helena and Isaiah moved through each season together, their partnership as strong as the day they wed. In 1915, tragedy struck when their daughter Rose fell ill with pneumonia. Despite the best efforts of the doctor, she passed away, leaving behind a grieving husband and 3 young children. Helena and Isaiah were devastated, but they drew strength from each other and from their faith. They took in Rose's children, raising them alongside the other grandchildren who often stayed at the ranch. Through the grief, their love remained constant, a beacon that guided them through the darkness. Isaiah held Helena when she cried, and she did the same for him. They mourned together, healed together, and found joy again together. As they entered their 60s, Isaiah began to step back from the daily running of the ranch, turning over more responsibility to Henry and Jack, who had both become skilled ranchers in their own right. But they remained active, unable to completely retire from the land and animals they loved. Helena continued her work helping women in need, and the safe haven's reputation as a place of refuge grew. Women came from all over Wyoming and beyond, seeking safety and a fresh start. Helena welcomed them all, offering them the same kindness that Isaiah had once offered her. In the spring of 1920, on a warm afternoon much like the one when they had first met, Isaiah and Helena sat on the porch of their home, watching the sun set over the mountains. They were in their early 60s now, their hands weathered from years of work, their faces deeply lined, but their eyes still sparkled when they looked at each other. "You know what I was thinking about today?" Isaiah asked, his hand finding Helena's as naturally as breathing. "What is that?" "That day in Bisbee when I first saw you. You looked so lost and so brave at the same time. I knew immediately that you were special, that you were someone worth knowing." Helena smiled. "I thought you were crazy, a stranger offering to help me for no reason. I did not believe people like you existed. And now I know that people like you are rare, but they do exist, and I am grateful beyond words that I found you, or that you found me." Helena leaned her head on Isaiah's shoulder, comfortable in the silence that fell between them. "I would do it all again," Isaiah said softly. "Every moment, every challenge, every joy. I would choose you every single time, as I would choose you." They sat together as the sky turned brilliant shades of orange and purple, the mountains standing sentinel in the distance. Their life together had not been perfect. They had faced challenges and sorrows along with the joys. But through it all, they had chosen each other, loved each other, built a life that was rich with meaning and purpose. Helena thought about the woman she had been all those years ago, the one who had believed love was synonymous with pain. She was grateful that woman had found the courage to walk away, to take a chance on a kind stranger with sage-colored eyes. She was grateful for every moment that had led her to this porch, to this man, to this life. "Isaiah," she said softly. "Yes, my love. Thank you for showing me that love is supposed to feel safe. Thank you for being my safe harbor all these years." Isaiah lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "Thank you for letting me love you. Thank you for building this life with me. You are my greatest adventure, Helena Fletcher." As darkness fell and the stars emerged one by one, they remained on the porch, hand in hand, hearts intertwined. Their love story had begun in pain and fear, but it had transformed into something beautiful and enduring. They had proven that with patience, kindness, and commitment, even the deepest wounds could heal. Their children and grandchildren would tell their story for generations, a testament to the power of love to transform and redeem. They would speak of Helena's courage and Isaiah's kindness, of a love that had weathered every storm and emerged stronger. But for now, in this moment, it was just the two of them, two souls who had found each other against all odds, who had built a life and a legacy of love. And as the Wyoming night embraced them, Helena knew that she was finally, completely, eternally home. The years rolled on, gentle and full. Isaiah and Helena grew old together with grace, their love deepening with each passing season. They celebrated the births of great-grandchildren, welcomed new members into their ever-expanding family, and watched with pride as the Safe Haven Ranch continued to thrive under the care of their children and grandchildren. Helena never stopped her advocacy work, even as her hair turned silver and her steps grew slower. Women still came to the Safe Haven seeking refuge, and Helena still welcomed them with open arms and the wisdom born of her own experiences. She told them her story, not to dwell on the pain but to offer hope. She showed them that healing was possible, that they deserved love that was gentle and kind. Isaiah remained her constant companion and greatest supporter. even as arthritis made his hands stiff and his back ached from decades of ranch work. He found ways to show Helena his love every single day. He brought her wildflowers in the summer, warmed her feet by the fire in winter, and never once took for granted the gift of waking up beside her each morning. In the summer of 1925, they celebrated their 35th wedding anniversary. The entire family gathered at the ranch for a massive celebration that lasted 3 days. There was music and dancing, food and laughter, and story after story shared about Isaiah and Helena's enduring love. On the final evening of the celebration, after all the guests had departed and the house was quiet, Isaiah and Helena took one last walk together to their favorite spot by the stream. The moon was full, bathing everything in silver light. "You remember the first time we came here together?" Helena asked, her arm linked through Isaiah's. "Of course. I asked you if you could see a future with me." "I was terrified," Helena admitted. "I wanted so badly to believe you, but I was so afraid of being hurt again. And I was terrified that I would fail you somehow, that I would not be able to show you what real love was," Isaiah confessed. Helena stopped walking and turned to face her husband. Even in the moonlight, she could see the love shining in his eyes, as bright as it had been 35 years ago. "You never failed me, not once. Every single day you showed me what love is supposed to be. You gave me a life beyond my wildest dreams." Isaiah cupped her face gently in his weathered hands. "You gave me purpose and meaning. You gave me a reason to be the best man I could be. Loving you has been the greatest privilege of my life." They kissed there in the moonlight. Two people who had found each other when they both needed saving, who had built a love that had stood the test of time. And as they walked back to their home, hand in hand, they knew that their story would continue, not just in their own lives but in the lives of all those they had touched. Their love had become a legacy, a beacon of hope for anyone who had ever believed that love had to hurt. Helena and Isaiah had proven that love could heal, that it could build, that it could transform two broken people into something whole and beautiful together. And on that clear Wyoming night, under a sky full of stars, Helena Foster Fletcher felt nothing but gratitude for the day she had walked into a saloon in Bisbee, Arizona, and met a tender cowboy who had promised to show her that love was supposed to feel safe. He had kept that promise every single day since, and she had learned not just to survive but to truly live. Together, they had created a legacy of love that would endure for generations, a testament to the power of kindness, patience, and the unwavering belief that everyone deserves to be loved the way they were always meant to be loved, gently, deeply, and completely.